Hello, everyone, and welcome to This Week in Hospitality Marketing, a live show number 410. I am your host, Loren Gray. Thank you so much for joining us on all of the platforms and channels that we broadcast on, which are numerous, actually. It is Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, multiple pages, multiple everything, except for LinkedIn. LinkedIn's only one, so we'll call it for that. Anywho, I'm your host, Logan. Oh, I'm sorry. We're also on TV, our TV station. Jeez, I keep forgetting how important that is and how much we get in 209 countries. We get so many of you watching us on TV, which is awesome. Um, that is, you can find us on Roku, Google TV, Amazon TV, Apple TV, Samsung TV. Just look for Hospitality Channel, and we are there. Anywho's, thank you so much for joining again. As I said, it is conference month. Yay. We'll get to that in an opinion conversation at the end of the show. I wanted to hit today's topic kind of hard because of the inspiration of conference month with HSMAI, ALHOA, all doing silly things, competing with each other. And the topic for today, and you're hearing so much of it, you see so much of it, but we want to break it down a little bit into some detail. And that is AI. And the topic is basically AI, the new shiny object. The reason it's shiny object, the old analogy, and I'm probably the worst at it, is the humorous analogy of somebody talking and then going, "Oh, squirrel!" They run off. They look for the shiny object. Whatever's the newest, shiniest thing is the thing that everyone's fixated on. It's the buzzword. It's persistent to it. Not to be specific about certain conversations or presentations, but when it was discussed in a panel format as to which topics would be handled by individual panelists, there was almost a clamoring over each other for them to go to, "Oh, I'll do AI," because it's the most provocative conversation. It's the buzzword. Remember when crypto and blockchain and VR and all these, we go through this cycle of looking for the next best thing, but we don't fundamentally do the things that we have tools and resources for already. So strangely enough, in the conclusion of that conversation, I was the one to say, I'll do everything other than AI, which is really the bread and butter functionalities of what is being done today. I'm not discounting the value proposition of what AI represents. I'm not discounting the value proposition of what AI can currently do. As a matter of fact, I'm doing some really cool stuff with AI, but I'm not running around with that in front of me. That doesn't enter the room before I do. It is a part of, if all other things are being done functionally well, as Stuart Butler, when he was on the show, used to say, block and tackle. If the basics are done first, then you can consider all these new and innovative things that can be done. It offers a lot of promise, obviously. And given our labor restrictiveness and the turmoil that's in the labor market, from a perspective of hospitality, some things from a cost functioning point of view can be augmented with AI usage. I say this from the context of what I literally do from a marketing perspective, from an analytical perspective. There's a lot of things that can be done with AI that minimizes the time tasks that I have to do. It still has to be done by me. It still has to be functioned by somebody that understands what it is that they're trying to create. And not everybody can take out of the box AI and make it work for what they want to do. Just as anybody that's tried to ask ChatGPT a simple question, you get an answer, but based on the question you ask, you realize that there's a certain lack of completeness to it and or truth to it, and you have to redefine your questions. And those question formats are what's called prompts. It's a new language in a way as to how you ask a question. And I've always tried to describe this to clients. It's kind of like if you found the proverbial genie bottle on the beach. We've always seen those cartoons of asking what you think is a clear question of what you want, only to have it interpreted in a way that you didn't expect. Um, and that's really what we're looking at in the usages of AI. It will answer statistically relevant value propositions based on the black box functionality of the AI itself, an answer for you. It may not be what you were looking for. And if you trust it too much, like a few lawyers did, where they had to do its brief and then they found out that it was referring to fictitious cases and now they're under sequester because of it. Um, you have to validate what you're using AI for. Why I bring all this up is because ownerships and management companies are looking at whatever's new and shiny. What can we do to solve what we think we have as problems without looking at their current solution scale and technologies and resources? and they want to go from where they are to full solution. They want the silver bullet to be the solution process. So here we are talking about hospitality marketing and AI and it being a shiny object. How does those things correlate together? Marketing is a functional tool of interpretation. It's a process of communication. It's a process of conveyance of that information in such a way, in such a format, and in such a targeting that the opportunity of what efforts you've created, the time consumption and cost of creating content, creating marketing campaigns, ad campaigns, platform expenditures, and so forth, is validated by the revenue business that its ultimate purpose is for in generating for you. All along that process, there are places where AI can help with what you're doing. It can improve your content development. It can improve your organic optimization. It can improve your social dialogue and your frequency and your attentiveness. It can engage with guests in a level that is controllable and not hiding behind uh, its automation to help your guests to alleviate some guest service issues because of limited resources you have in your team. It can do a lot of those things. It can create ad variations. It can create data interpretations. It can do lots of things, but you need to know how to ask it correctly to give you accurately what it is you would like it to do. And that gap point is not being explained by the people that are loving to throw around this term. Um, Now that I'm back from my gallivanting through Europe for 2.5 months, really trying to catch up on the peer-to-peer dialogues on content, the people that I hadn't kept in consistent conversation with because of the time shift and so forth, catching up with what they're doing, how they're doing it, catching up on articles and things that I hadn't spent much time to watching as much as I usually do in my work environment, uh, and beginning to see, as expected, sadly, this forefront of AI, the magical word that gets people's attention. But what they talk about, the potentials and the crazy things, and they show, and I've seen this on presentations and so forth. Look at this amazing little thing that it does, and look at how crazy it does, and look at this picture that it makes. I see it in my feeds because I follow things like that on social media platforms and on newsfeed dialogues. And I see all these exceptional examples. But when you ask the person about did they create it, first off, they did and they shared it. Almost 90% of more people take something and then throw it out there as if they may have had some part to it. They're not lying. They didn't say that they did it, but they're sharing it as if this is something that reflects upon their capabilities. And when you really try to press on somebody that's trying to act like an authority on AI, the functionality that they're referring to its potential, and you really press them on how do you make it work? What platform? What AI configuration did you use? What data did you use for those for that process? What was how did you create the prompt for that answer to be used? You get quiet. You get silence. Now, you can say that they hide behind it because they don't want to share the uniqueness of what they've done, if they in fact even did it, which isn't the case. They usually climb up because they don't know how it was done. They shared it because it would made them look like they knew something about it, but they themselves didn't actually create it. And from that, you don't get a clear answer. So here you are standing on one side of a ravine, okay, seeing how awesome it is to be on the other side of the ravine. AI does this and AI can do this, with no bridge between where you are currently and where they say it could be, where you could be in solution processes. And that's where the fall down of this happens. And unfortunately, what usually fills this void is the traditional carpetbaggers, the people that mysteriously can do the things for you, won't tell you how, won't tell you anything about the process other than to give them money. And really, they'll hand you some pre canned prompts or vague guidance on functionality. They don't tell you the costs of what it takes to do it, except for the charges that they're willing to charge you to facilitate these things. There's no depth to them in lots of ways. And what you ended up doing is paying money because you're infatuated with the idea, and you end up getting either a rope to across the ravine that doesn't work and snaps because it doesn't get you to where you want to go, or a half finished bridge or whatever, but it doesn't do what you wanted it to do. And that's where we're gapping right now with AI. The people and the organizations that are truly trying to structure the usages of AI are not telling you how they're doing it for very simple reasons. They're going to monetize what they're learning. They're going to translate this investment of research into viable product. You're going to see a persistent burgeoning of AI augmented tools. Well, wait, we already got that. So the idea is that some tools that had been very good at what they did, SEO optimization tools, analytics tools, data analysis tools, um, content keyword discovery and usability for content generation tools, we're very quick to add in an AI augmentation. At first, it was simply they tried to jam the plug in, regardless of how it fit, and it created some very strange content or very strange strategies or very strange interpretations. But then they got better in realizing that they had to continually ask better questions. And if anybody's worked with AI, the first answer is not the best answer. It's not even the usable answer. Well, it's not the answer that you use for why you asked it. The answer is a cascading effect. You create an initial answer through a series of proper prompts, classifications, clarifications, designation of data that you use, and so forth. And the first answer is used as a template example that will augment the second question, that is a refined question compared to the first, using the data that, or the results from the first query, and so on, until you get to a point where AI has learned what you were asking about and for based on what you gave it to use. And from this, you get the result that you're looking for. And this is a process that happens. If you talk to anybody that makes image AIs, as an example, the first image is based on your classification of prompts. And it's not that when I say prompts, it's really just a breakdown of clarification of how you structure a question. When people were first dabbling with ChatGPT, when it first came out in November, general public, it was up before that, but when general public became aware of ChatGPT, they were asking silly questions of it. It would produce silly things. And then Da Vinci, which is their AI generation for their imaging, people started dabbling with that. The first images you get created are kind of like, whoa, okay, no. And so we have to refine what we're asking about and for from this. Take this image, don't make this or define this or change this. And then it made another image or options of images and so forth. And if you ever want to dabble with something for free that gives you the idea of the progression of interpreting what you're asking for, try Adobe's Fire. It's fun because it gives you a chance to play with their structured images, and you get to AI or augment the images, and you get to see how adding a UFO to a picture, being funny about it. There's like 6 variations to UFOs, and they are all UFOs, but not the UFO you envisioned when you asked to put the UFO in, kind of thing. Same too when it comes to AI usages for data and so forth. Asking about it, and depending upon the data sources that the AI is tapping to, um, means that it may give you an answer that is irrelevant to what you're actually asking for. So you have to define data, and sometimes that means actually taking the data and putting it into a location that you tell AI to use, or you actually insert the data into the query that you are giving AI to use it for. Excuse me, coffee. All of this doesn't get discussed from a stage. All this doesn't get discussed in a pitch. It's the magic of AI, the future of AI, and it's not that it's not going to have. It already has had a profound impact on our society, and it'll continue to have a very large impact on our business. And yes, AI will be able to do the things that we are thinking it's going to do in context to what eventually that becomes, in the ways that will get us across that chasm into the promised land of what AI can help us with. Um, but there's a reality of now that needs to be focused on. Abandoning what you have as current resources, abandoning what you have as current tools and functionalities and the structure of what you're doing with them isn't an either or, it's an and. It needs to be looked at that you do what you're doing, but now you get to ask the extra question, can AI help with that? Is there some aspect of this, some resource of AI that can make this process better. Better is defined by either improved accuracy, improved efficiency, improved cost. When you look at it from those perspectives, it makes it troubling that you and me as a person is building structure and forms to things that will eventually come into question my value proposition from a time consumption point of view as a resource for my clients. Because as I get better at using AI, my efficiency goes up. At first, it creates a higher accuracy, higher usability, and for me, it turns into a cost saving of time. Eventually, it'll turn into a replacement of my time. I won't need to be doing certain things because the automations I create, the usabilities of the platforms that I discover that I share with clients means that there is less of a need for me to do it and more of an opportunity for the client to simply have it done for them. This is a natural progression. It has helped me in determining with my AI developments the value proposition of policing, fencing, babysitting, uh, whatever way you want to call it, the usages of AI. Because one thing I've come to realize with clients persistently is that very few clients are always perpetually engaged with what you're doing for marketing. They're engaged when it is of a priority, it's engaged when it is of an issue, it's engaged when they need to have it engaged. But from a day to day point of view, they have other things other than marketing, okay, to be doing. And for that reason, they lose step. They aren't in the latest conversation. They aren't in the latest development. They aren't aware of the progressions of some things. And so I find sometimes with clients that there is a like a 50s first date, that movie where you have to kind of redescribe what you described 30 days ago in your conversations, to bring them back up to speed, and then from once they get back to that base point, move forward. Now, not all clients are like that. Some clients are actually aggressively engaged and are trying to push you past what you're sharing with them, and those are wonderful. But even they lose pace and step because as they feel more and more comfortable and trusting of what's going on for them, they begin to focus on other aspects of their responsibilities that require the same attention they were giving marketing. AI has the capability of augmenting a lot of what we do for marketing in an efficiency perspective right now. The tools that are out there right now for optimization of SEO, the optimization of content development, the generation of content development, data interpretation, data collection, all are there. The front edge of that, which is where the fun part for me right now is that um, it is the idea of taking what we're learning from how to use AI and asking for its true potential, and that is forecasting, predictive modeling, not just telling me your most productive channel was this, your most highest conversion was this, or these are benchmarks that you need to be notified of. Those are helpful. They certainly have streamlined the real time aspect of data and data usage for my clients by infusing AI usages in data. Um, but the real nifty part of AI, I think, that's coming for our industry, for marketing, and for other industries, but ours is our focus, is the predictive modeling capabilities of AI. And let me explain how the string would work. For right now, we get dashboards, and we're going to be talking about GA4's transition at the end of this month in just a minute as well. We get dashboards, and those dashboards have what I call forensic data in the sense that it reports what has happened. There is nothing other than the live view of your website's traffic, and even that has a slight latency to it, that the data you're accumulating, the revenue generations, channel integrations, and so forth, are all in a historical context. We have three pretenses: past, present, and future. Um, and the data accumulation is a past tense data. We see the conversion after it's happened. We see the engagement to the website after it's happened. Um, and there is some relevancy to the present in the sense that you can look at some things and there's latency to data. Google self admits that there will always be a 72-hour latency on accuracy of data, that as they refine the accumulation of data, some numbers may shift and change that are from the past 72 hours. That's something that is not going to be fixed anytime soon, according to them, for good reason. It gives them a latitude of variability as they refine their processes of data collection. All said and saying, AI can look at that. Our dashboards, not even AI. Let's just talk about dashboards. Dashboards that you create can look at the data and it can tell you these are the channels that are contributing and these are where the referrals are from and this is the conversion of these and this is the cost that you had and this is the cost per clicks, and those are all very fundamental numbers that you look at. And if you're a charts person, you look at the numbers and you can understand where there's some things that you would ask questions about or look for refinements or make improvements on. If you're a visual person, you're going to want that into spaghetti lines, pie charts, and bar graphs. And if you're an efficiency person or a person that's not actively involved in the process of these things, but need to be the decision maker, green good, red bad, arrow up good, arrow bad down kind of mentality. And then you have a whole level of reporting above all of that, which is benchmarking, which is these are the markers and the parameters for metrics that should they vary past these parameters, then notify me. Because that means either I should acknowledge a success or I should concern myself with a potential issue. Those benchmarking things. And that's actually an advancement to what a lot of people get. Not a lot of places have that. Unfortunately, a lot of reports are shuffled around and they're bulky, they're arduous, they're multi-layered, and they're confusing. There's no guides to them. And it's just pretty much like, yeah, I got that report. Well, what do you think about it? Well, I think there was a lot of numbers. Not a lot of people look at them for the value that they really are. So anyway, that's where we exist right now. AI can improve on that. It can create that higher level reporting, which is, I'll let you know when there's something that you should know about that benchmarking thing. Or here's a rapid scorecard that says, if anything happens outside of these parameters, this goes on the scorecard. So you can see right away, say for instance, a managing group or an owner can walk into their operations group and literally with a snapshot know what they want to know more about or to hear from them, whether it validates why the numbers that they're looking at on the scorecard make sense to them. Performance metrics, operational metrics, whatever it is. The other potential of all this is that it can be blended with other platforms, whether it be finance, whether it be operations, so that you have a more overview perspective of the entirety of a business, inclusive of marketing and revenue generation, top line revenue, as well as the operational as it flows through to your net flow. And you can have metrics that will show you your performance through all of that. That's all cool. And AI can help with that right now. The AI can do some of those things where it will create that aggregation. But that's only making AI act like a very fancy dashboard. That's kind of where everybody should expect to be right now. Unfortunately, hardly that, but they should be expected being at that point right now. Then you can ask, and this is the progression of AI where we are right now, you can ask AI questions about the data. Now, I'm not going to be one of the smoke and mirror people. What you need to do to have this function is you need to give AI, what platform you choose to use, the type of AI that you're using, access to the data defined, whether it be your analytics, whether it be your ad campaigns, whether it be your operational spreadsheets. It gets down to the real categorization. This is column A, B, and C, row 1, 2, 3. This cell or this row or this column is defined as data this. Tell me the comparison of this data as I defined to this data defined. And that goes into what's called a sequential prompt. Prompt is classification, clarification, identification, interpretation, validation, conclusion, for lack of complexity. For that reason, you're telling the AI how to look at it, what to look at, what you're asking about it, what you're wanting to know about it, and then what does that mean about it? So now, with that process in an AI format, you can begin to ask advanced questions. For instance, what was the channels that I should consider spending more money on? And it knows you're asking the question based on performance of success of revenue or performance and success and reduction of cost. That prompt has clarified what that question means. See how that works? And so for that reason, you have a variety of prompts. In those prompts, there have dynamic fields, insert name of, insert information source of, whatever the variables are that are needed to make that prompt work. For some people that are familiar with the shiny object discussions that they're getting in presentations and so forth, they're showing how it can make a Twitter prompt of write me a post about for Twitter, or write me a post for Facebook. That is easy and available right now, and that's just toys. What we're talking about is data usage, data interpretation, and the value proposition that AI can bring for efficiencies to our industry, especially for marketing. So that brings us to a forensic analysis of AI. Based on the data that you've defined for it to look at, it's giving you answers based on the quality of your prompt that you're looking for to better understand that data. You're still looking at forensic data. You're still looking at the history of what you've done to understand what you might want to do in the future. But that's like driving a Ferrari to a grocery store. It'll do it for you. May not have as many space for groceries, but it'll get you there. You have a Ferrari. You want to run it around a racetrack. What AI is really the potential we all envision, the other side of the chasm that we want to be to, is its ability to tell us what we don't know in a way that makes us understand that it looked at things that we don't have the time to understand categorically, collectively, it can answer. We want the Star Trek computer. We want the HAL computer, where it's an active dialogue. We want answers to questions that we don't have to qualify as clearly as we have to do right now with prompts. But right now we have to make prompts. So we make the prompts so we can ask the right questions. And for that, what we're looking at is predictive modeling. And this is a tough one because you have to be better about what data you're asking it to look at. And you have to define how you want it to look at that data and create those values. And once those values are created, how to determine with those values how to answer the query in the context that you want as an answer. And that's the part that's really the new edge, the shiny part of AI right now, is where picture, and I'm going to do like the shiny object people, picture a place where you come into your office, you open up your computer, and it's giving you a scorecard, dashboard, bullet, benchmark, whatever, saying performance is down on this channel by this percentages compared to the parameters that we said we wanted to be in. These channels are increasing in cost based on variances that we said we didn't want it to be in. Production is at this level, but we feel that there is the following things in the future that we're going to run into problems: need dates, low demand to market, production pace compared to what we expect versus what it seems to be running right now. Whatever way we want to, and this is simplistic ways of defining the variances that AI could be looking at. But we want to be able to look at the computer and literally ask it, what should I do about it? And the computer to show you that if you increase your spend in this channel this much based on the current pace of conversions and volume of traffic, it should yield the revenue variance that you need to bring you back into the parameters that you said are acceptable performances. It also means that you can go look at and say, potentially, what can I do about improving my September business? And it will look at the data that you've defined, your past performance data, maybe outside sources data. There's platforms now I get to be secretive. I'm not going to tell you how to get data from, that can talk to you about demand to market, percentage of voice of market, contribution of market, competitive set cost, competitive set presence, voice of market, and so forth, that you can pull in this data. And it can tell you, based on the data you've given it to review, which can be year over year, over several years, so you get more of a weighted mean because of our skewed business profiles for these past few years, that it can give you clarity of an answer. Augmentation of this channel, reduction of cost of this department, whatever it may be, it will actually give you a recommendation. Now, here's the thing that humanity has to step into. They have to look at the rationale of whether that makes sense, or whether it seems that it's skewed based on the fact that you gave it the data to use, but that data isn't as informatively complete as the perspective of you as the facilitator, the human. And so you get to compare it and look at it. And that's the value proposition of how people like me and those that are in the operations, marketing and so forth, still provide value. They are still the human filter, the policeman to the results. So if you had this forecasting capability, this predictive modeling functionality of data, what happens is the same said operations person or owner or management senior exec walks in, and their computer tells them not what I just said about performance parameters and so forth. It'll say, these are the following actions you need to take. These are concerns, these are positives, these are variances and these are the recommendations for those variances to be fixed. Ta-da! Now we have a greater efficiency. Now it brings up. Now they can ask questions towards that. They can bring in a me. They can bring in their internal bandwidth people and say, whatever your nickname of the computer is, Hal is telling me that we need to go over and really shut down our OTT advertising for September, and we really need to be jacking up our paid social and Facebook and Pinterest, because we're going to fall short of, or we want to exceed in opportunities. There's an opportunity in September we didn't know we had by doing so. Now, they might look at it and say, well, it's telling you to shut down the OTT because you told it we had a limited budget. But if you didn't have a limited budget, let's keep OTT running and let's just augment what it says with Facebook and Pinterest and add more money to it. See, this is the rationale of how AI begins into a human interface, how the decision processes happen. Letting Hal run the ship is not good. Having Hal tell you what you should consider to run the ship is good. That's the variations of the AI. So the reason why I'm bringing up the AI shiny object discussion is because I look at the conferences that are rolling out this month, have rolled out earlier this year, and continue to be pressed forward with a lot of the associations. You can almost do it like a Chinese fortune cookie, where the old adage is you open a fortune cookie and you start every fortune you read with "in bed" or whatever cute phrase you want to say, and it makes it funnier, the fortune. You can almost do that with all of the programs that are being put out there for this year for content of presentations. Just put AI in front of all of them because they're already doing it per se. There's such a disproportionate percentage of presentations talking about the future of AI in our industry, the impact of AI, what AI will do for you, what AI can do for you. It's just, oh my gosh. We'll get to that. I want to get a final discussion about where we are right now, being in the middle of June 16th, 2023. We are less than 2 weeks away from D-Day for Google. July 1st, Universal Analytics. I thought a very interesting progression. I'm really confused by this. Not really confused, but just dazed, really, at this point. 18 months ago, it was said that Universal Analytics had end of the road life cycle to it. It was going to be 2023. And that to begin to prepare by the beginning usages of GA4, Google Analytics Series 4. And so many businesses didn't bother with it. They didn't see it as an eminent issue. Therefore, it was not in a budget. Kind of the kick the can down the road mentality. Yeah, well, let's not put it in 22's budget to make this change. Worry about in 23. Without really understanding what that meant to them as a business, as an entity for their online marketing and their analytics tracking. Because so many people, businesses use Google Analytics. And the ones that use alternatives to that know the limitations of those platforms and the cost of those platforms. So even if they thought they were being safe by hiding behind it, they weren't, because of the third-party cookie issues that are coming up ever since iOS 14 platform came out and started changing privacy guidelines and rules and abilities to follow. And Google's rolling into that next year as well. And it's happening more and more, and especially the iOS 17's rollout this year is even going to be more so. We'll be talking about that in future shows as well. But then GA4 has been sitting on the horizon for businesses, our industry, for quite a while. What people mostly didn't understand, we've talked about it now for well over a year, was if you didn't start at least mutually parallel tracking GA4 data by setting up a GA4 account for your existing UA accounts, then you would not have historical data, because the data that exists in Universal Analytics does not transfer to GA4. It is different. And I'll explain that again. We've explained it before, but I'll explain it again. So come July, if you hadn't already been tracking data since May of last year, you're going to lose year over year data to whenever you finally eventually started GA4. If you were even smart enough to have configured GA4 to track in GA4's formatting the information that you found consistently necessary, performance metrics, channel metrics, conversion metrics, that you integrated it into your tracking program. If you just felt that it was going to be a flip of the switch and Google would handle the magic or the voodoo, or your people were just going to say, yeah, everything's fine, we're set up with GA4, and if they told you that, they were lying, um, everything's going to switch over, no problem, you're going to have a rude falling off the cliff at Discovery come July 1st. You're going to go dark. And that's the thing that baffles me a little bit, because it's not that we had to progress off of Universal Analytics. That session-based mentality, trackability, cookie-based functionality had lived its life, and it needed to change. I don't like how Google's restructured it. It makes us more dependent on them. It makes us more reliant, as if we weren't already reliant and dependent enough already on them. But even now, more so, because we're relying on them to interpret the data that they're collecting for us. But all said and saying, back 18 months ago, the impression was that Universal Analytics was going to be handled similar to like Microsoft handles a Windows OS update. When it finally runs its life, when XP was no longer going to be supported by Windows, it didn't mean XP as an operating system stopped working on the date that they said they stopped supporting it. It just meant that if things it wasn't being kept updated. So if things changed, that platform wasn't getting changed. It eventually created so much problems, you'd want to get off to it, whether bad security, bad functionality, wouldn't talk to certain new programs, whatever it was. You wanted to upgrade. That's what they were asking you to do. They're going to end support for the other ones. And everyone thought that Google was going to do the same thing, that they were just going to let UA sit there as GA4 replaced it as the priority analytics, but your UA data would still be there. Nope. Early part of this year, they made the announcement that UA goes dark. Dark. Now, from my understanding, Google is going to preset or default allowance that GA4 will just be replaced, but no setups, no tracking, no nothing, just it's there. Zero platform. And if you were silly thinking when you opened up your Universal Analytics and they started announcing that everything was going to happen come July, that you need to change to GA4, and you say, oh, I'll change to GA4 now, and you do it. First off, that's when the meter started about tracking any data through the GA format. Okay. And it didn't solve your refinement of how you track for the data that you had set up in UA, if you had even set up in UA. Some businesses are blissfully unaware. They didn't even set up their UA correctly. So they weren't even using the data as well as it should be used. They were just looking at vanity metrics because that's all the defaults, and they never even set up goals and events and anything like that. And so they don't even know what they had to miss what they had. And GA4 is just going to put them back down to a level of, oh, yeah, look, pretty dashboard. Tells me how many people came to the website and, where they came from. That's about it. But July 4th is going to be a cliff falling off for a lot of companies. And I can tell you that because of the desperation of calls that I get offering like, okay, can you do fixes? Can you make this for us and so forth? And the first caveat we tell them is that, you realize that your UA data needs to be saved. So you have it so you can refer to it in a legacy platform. Secondly, GA4 data only gets saved for 12 months, 14 months really. And it gets washed away if you don't find a place to put it, which we recommend using Google's BigQuery, which is their large data storage warehouse. So you pay storage for it. It's not expensive at first, but as you begin to accumulate more and more data, you have to buy more and more tokens for it, and it costs more and more money. Not a lot of money, but it costs money. They're not going to forever hold your data for 10 years like they used to with UA Analytics. The other part that people don't understand is the real variance between Google Analytics and UA, GA4 and then Analytics. Universal Analytics was based on a session-based program. It tracked the function of a person's engagement. That was usually done by a cookie that retained with the user as they went through, and that sessions that they ran is what was tracked. In GA4's user base, data dimensions, I should say, data dimensions are where it tracks everything. And then you have to define what it is out of the data that it is tracking, what you want to know. That's why they only hold 14 months, because if they're holding 14 months of everything, they're not going to do it for free after 14 months. You have to pay for the retaining of data beyond that. So the idea that it's tracking everything is there's a benefit to it and there's a curse to it. in Universal Analytics, if you want to track a certain thing, like, oh wow, we noticed that people come to accommodations page and then they go to our photo page. Sure, would like to know how many people bought from our photo gallery, went to the booking engine and booked. So you create an event saying, okay, let's track everybody that went to accommodations, went to photo gallery, and then went to the booking engine. Let's track that as an event. Okay. And the goal is that they actually converted. Okay. And we have analytics on the booking engine, and we can tell that this happened and this is how much money came from it. And then from that point forward, from you making this, it started tracking the data. So you didn't get anything prior to before you set up your goal, your event and goal. You only got it from the moment you decided you want to start tracking it forward. In GA4, that data already exists. So if you want to say, wow, from a reporting perspective, I want to know the same answer, like who from accommodations went to our photo gallery that ended up going to our booking engine and booking, okay? You just have to define that in a data layer, and it will pull a report for you. It will tell you that answer as far back as it has data. That's because it is tracking everything, and you just have to define what you're interested in looking at. Now, the same holds true for UA as it holds for GA4, and that is if you want to create custom audiences, the audiences don't get created until you actually create the parameters for the audience. So if you wanted to create an audience for everybody that went to your booking engine in the past 30 days that did not book and use that as a retargeting feature for your ad campaigns, yes, you can do that if you didn't know that. It's fertile ground, by the way. You can do that as soon as you start the process of accumulating the custom audience. So you can't go back and find that out, but you can start and begin to accumulate them. And once it gets to a critical mass of numbers, usually to at least 2,000, then you can use that as a custom audience and definement of your ad campaigns for retargeting. So those things are similar. But the variance between session-based tracking in UA and data layers is different. There are components that can be defined in GA4 that were in Universal Analytics, but they're not the same numbers and they're not the same functionalities. And so for that reason, there is going to be a disparity that if you're banking it down to a granular number and that number shifts, you're going to wonder why. Anyway, that's a tangent. So July 1st, everything's going to go dark. There's going to be a lot of properties that lose sight of their performances. Now, that doesn't mean Google ad campaigns aren't going to tell you how many people clicked on them and how many people went to your booking. But the analytics of your website, the interaction of that ad campaigns to your website, or what people are interacting with your website, or all the modality of what Google Analytics has been for you. If you haven't switched to GA4, or if you recently switched to GA4, or if you didn't set up your GA4 correctly and just defaulted to whatever Google gave you, you are going to be on the downside, the dark side of what analytics can help you for in your marketing decision process. It's going to be an interesting bumpy road for the first 90 days, which I mean by August, September, and October, as people begin to see the impact of their deference and kicking the can down the road, or their deference to the IT people if they were adamant about making the change, or their ignorance of the IT people that didn't tell them they needed to make the change. Whatever it is, there's going to be a lot of businesses that are going to have a lot of, I need solutions. So it's going to be a busy time for us, I guess, is what I have to say. So that's my GA4 discussion. And the last part is more going to be an opinion conversation on the show today related to AI and related to the associations. Oh, let me throw in one Google thing. Sorry, bouncing all over the board. Google just announced this week that it is no longer, it's sunsetting its Google domain support function, which is really weird because just 14 months after it went from beta to live. It's switching it over to Squarespace. All of the hosting, millions of hotels, millions of websites are being shifted over to Squarespace. Squarespace, I never used it because it was incredibly insecure. Domain hosting, people could hijack and steal your domains. There was no security as well as it should be. It was just a sad state of affairs. And the fact that Google, 14 months after launching it from beta, I mean, it's been running since 2017, I think. And then 2022, it launched out of beta, and now all of a sudden it's closing down. Especially since they have Google Workspace that they run with, which runs emails and so forth. This efficiency excuse that they gave is really bizarre, but it's not going to be there. So if you have domains with Google, you should have already gotten notified, but it's going to be sunsetted and it's going to be moved over to Squarespace, and they're going to tell you all the things of why it's a good move, but just be aware that you need to look at Squarespace pragmatically and decide uh, if it's a safe move for you. You need to find other platforms to run your domains off of. Like I use WP Engine. That's a solid one. There's others that are good and solid too, and stuff like that. But anyways, so getting back to my editorial discussion today, we have two conferences going on at the end of this month: High Tech's HSFTPs, and High Tech is an adjacency to that with their commercial marketing. What do they call it? Anyways, and that's in Toronto. And then in Las Vegas is HLA's completely contra, purposely on the same dates. There's this little war going on between two of the largest entities as associations go in our industry. It's petty. It is. It's sad because not to get into the politics of it all, but one company didn't want to get bought by another. One person had aspirations of being more in control, whatever it is. So it was decided that AHLA was going to do the hospitality show in Las Vegas, and everybody is keeping track of who's attending which ones. And in strange ways, in back conversations, agencies they're stuck holding the bill that if they don't want to miss where it's all going to land as their audiences that buy their products, they're expending double the money to be at multiple places, Las Vegas and Toronto and more. And the organizations that are seeing them attend are also seeing that they're splitting their resources and they're not supporting them. They're like, no, we want you only with us or only over here. And it's petty, it's expensive, it's unproductive because the result of it, my entire network of people that I deal with on a professional level, and nobody's going. Any of them. One, because literally, as I mean, people will notice which one you go to, and that will affect your future relations with them. We cover with the TV station, the associations, and my choice not to be able to make it up to either one of them was just based on the fact I just came back from 2.5 months, as you all know, from my broadcast before. These past few months, I've been in Europe, and it just was too much of a back-to-back travel for me to be able to hit either of these conferences. But the idea that I had to make a choice is like choosing between children. Really, that doesn't work. So you're faced with this fact that both of them are trying to prove that they are the definitive resource for hospitality as an association, and they failed both. Both of them have failed. I'd lean towards High Tech because they've been doing this for so long. They have been the entity that represents the technology and the functionality of finance in our industry, and that they have been the stalwart to this. I'm not saying AHLA hasn't been in existence and done what it's done, but the fact that they have to pit themselves against it rather than collaborate, realize they can make a massive footprint opportunity had they just collaborated rather than decided they wanted to compete. And then AHLA HO is in this mix too for various reasons. But what I want to bring out about all of this is I'm looking at the presenters of everything, whether it be AHLA's hospitality show, whether it be High Tech for HFTP, whether it be HSMAI's commerce marketing strategy conference. Sorry, I should say it correctly. There is an unfortunate, I wouldn't say dumbing down, numbing top layer discussion. Topically, you're getting opinion, strictly that, opinion. And in our world right now, that's one thing we're not lacking in is opinion. Mine included, this show included. I'm giving you an opinion now. There's podcasts, there's webinars, there's seminars, there's TV stations that I'm one of them. No, actually, I'm the only hospitality hospitality industry TV station. So that's not even fair to say. We're the only ones. Podcasts would be great representation of that. People expressing their perspectives on things and so forth. And if you go to these conferences, you're basically spending a whole lot of money to hear the same opinion that these people are willingly putting on their own podcasts or websites or whatever. And if you say, well, CEO insights, they can't share. They're a publicly traded company. They can't share really the insight. And to be pragmatically fair, and I'm not taking away from CEOs' capabilities and potentially they've earned the role that they are in or whatever level they may be at, they're not the facilitators of these things. So they don't know how AI breaks down to a prompt segmentation. They don't, but they can be happy to talk about their opinion of AI. And that's what we're seeing a lot of in the associations. That's the shiny tool this time. 2 years ago, and last year, excuse me, blockchain, VR. It's whatever buzzworthiness there is. Nobody knows how it really functionally uses. If they have some example of some robot bouncing around in a hallway to bring cold room service food as their technology adoption, they don't know what it is. They know how much they paid for it because they're the ones that approved the check, but that's about it. I'm saying that conferences should have value. Conferences should have actionable items. Conferences should have meaning to what you're doing. For the uninitiated, conferences are a wonderful opportunity to expose the perspectives that people share from the stage, and it's well worth it for that. But if you're going to conferences for actionable items of learning from somebody on a stage telling you how to do something, conferences, as I see them right now, that are happening now, are not providing that content. That's not to take away from the value of conferences. Conferences themselves have so much inherent value, and that was ever more evident when we didn't get to have conferences during the pandemic. The networking capability and the exposure to products that you would not have been exposed to had you not been there. And I think primarily of high tech when I say that. And I'm sure the hospitality show, HLA, is going to have its discovery moments of people that are there. Matter of fact, I think even they refer to one of their boards or their panels as where is it? They call it discovery platforms, or what is it? Hold on, I'll tell you what it is. Breakout series, vendors, partners, hours, networking, industry leaders, looking for it. It's a name that they gave their breakouts. I thought was interesting. Solution stages. There we go. Solution stages. Great buzzword. I would challenge anybody that it goes to these conferences to knock me off this hill. Change my mind that you actually got a solution as described in functionality of how to do it from any presentation at any of these conferences. I challenge you. I'll bring you on the show. I'll let you tell me how wrong I am on the TV channel. If you can tell me how, by going to the conference, you were explained and described how to do what they said to do from the stage, rather than it just being it's so cool and I can't share that, so forth and so on. That's what I'm talking about. And it's an unrealistic expectation on my part to say that I would expect that conferences provide that. That is truly what webinars are supposed to do, seminars, paid membership value propositions. But at a conference, you're paying a chunk of wonka of money to show up. But the real values I find these conferences really represent these days: exposure to product and the networking of the people with that product, and the networking of people that you see and engage with because of the chances they get to go on stage and talk about generalized perspectives of things that are ambiguous, about things that they can't talk about. So the value proposition of conferences needs to be realistic in my mind as well. I need to tone down my concern of how much how-tos come from the stage, but I still have the challenge to anybody that wants to do it. And that is, don't expect answers from the stage. Expect impressive, fun things and bang, wow, shinies and oohs and ahs, and maybe some expansion of options or ideas or perspectives that you didn't have before seeing whoever presents or what panel talks or whatever. And enjoy the booths and seeing the softwares and the vendors and the tech and the things that you may not have been familiar with, and engage with people that are up and coming and or fully present in market, sharing with you why their product is what it is, doing what it's doing, what it hopes to be able to do, and who it's selling it to, and so forth, and ask the smart right questions. But next week, we're going to have a how to attend the conference discussion on the live show as part of this editorial dialogue as to how to get the most out of the conferences. But the idea is go with it with the expectations of what the conference value proposition really is. And I would say to HLA and HFTP and everything else is like, mend the fence. Just fix it, because it's silly, this head-to-head comparison of people having to choose what they do. Let them enjoy the full spectrum of what both of you as resources have to our industry, and don't do this splitting the baby in the bathwater thing. So there you have it. That is our live show number 410. Blissfully back in Southwest Florida. As a way of note for everyone that has been suffering through the dramatic weather changes and tornadoes and so forth through the Midwest, and well, I'm just go through Texas, Mississippi, Alabama, Florida, Georgia. Our hearts out to you. I know the threat and fear of weather. We just had Ian, of course, last year, and here we are in the middle of hurricane season again. And that cloud is a real one. The blue tarps that I'm looking at through the window are real. The recovery is still not complete and won't be for quite a while. And the same recovery for everyone that has suffered through the weather changes that are going on. So with that, my name is Loren Gray. For watching us on the live TV station, whether it be on your Roku channel, whether it be on your Apple TV, whether it be on your Google TV, whether it be on Amazon TV, whether it be on Samsung TV, thank you for doing so. If you're watching us on your Xbox or PS5 on Twitch, thank you for that. If you're watching us on Facebook, thank you for that. LinkedIn, thank you. That's my profile you're watching it on. Ask me questions at any time through that. You can send me an email anytime with questions, responses, dialogue, feedback, pushback in two ways. You can send me an email at loren@hospitalitydigitalmarketing.com, or you can actually give me an audio response, and I have some questions you can answer and give me permissions to use your responses or whatever on a place that is an audio feedback. You can join our show. Actually, we use it for our podcast, our audio podcast, which I'll be doing after this, which is hdm.news/talkback. You go there, it's on your phone or anything. You can give us an audio response, comment, suggestion, input, feedback, whatever you want. We use it for the podcast. We also use it for a live show. So you can catch us there. So, and on YouTube, if you're watching us on a variety of YouTube channels, thank you so much for doing so as well. I did enjoy, as I traveled, people actually acknowledging they watched the show in the countries that I was in. It was a pleasure to run across people like that. And for the feedback I get from people from around the world, where the TV channel itself runs in 209 countries. This show is simulcasted on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube into 39 countries, and Twitch. Twitch, we can't actually define the countries. And then the podcast, again, same distribution, same capability. We're on 39 platforms, podcast distribution platforms as well. Strangely enough, one of the largest users of our podcast playback is on Amazon's Alexa. Siri also has a played part to it, and Google Assistant, because on all of those, you just simply have to ask, play the Hospitality Marketing Podcast, and it'll play the latest episode. So stay tuned for today's. It will be about some functional AI integration scraping tools and RPAs, excuse me, which are automation tools that allow you to create mundane, repetitive tasks into an automation to generate things, reports, functionality, so forth. We'll be talking about that again today. So with all of that, my name is Loren Gray. I thank you for the privilege of your time and look forward to talking to you all next week.